The missing sailor from the USS Theodore Roosevelt has been declared dead, tragically. So a sailor went overboard on the USS Roosevelt last week and has been declared dead after search efforts were called off. And I'm going to cover this story, which is from Task and Purpose, and I'm going to tell you kind of throughout what my experience in the Navy was and what I think about this, having been out to sea a few times. And we'll get into it. This is going to be our big story today. This is sad. So a sailor from the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt, who has been missing since December 10th, has been declared dead, Navy officials announced. Search and rescue efforts ended on December 12th after failing to locate the sailor, according to the Third Fleet. I just got chills when I read that because I'm just thinking back to being at sea. The loss of our sailor is felt deeply by all on board, Captain Eric Anduzzi said. He's the Theodore Roosevelt's commanding officer. The entire Theodore Roosevelt team sends our deepest condolences to the family of our missing shipmate. So the commanding officer is who would ultimately call off the search and declare him dead. So I was thinking about this morning, the making the call. When you know it's the right thing to do, when you know search efforts are not going to be successful. And I'm sure that there's a protocol surrounding this too on how long to search and a deep understanding of what the survivability of being at sea for several days is without any kind of life support, like no life raft. All you have is your probably flotation device, your vest. So during more than 55 hours, the Theodore Roosevelt, along with other Navy and Coast Guard ships and aircraft, searched for more than 607 square nautical miles for the sailor whose name has not been officially released by the Navy. The name was released. I'll look it up before the end of the show here. The search began on December 10th after one of the aircraft carrier's lookouts spotted what appeared to be a person in the water. A command-wide muster revealed that one of the ship's sailors was unaccounted for. So let me walk you through kind of what that looks like. So on a ship, on an aircraft carrier. So I've been on the type of ship that the Roosevelt is, okay, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. I spent years on it. You've got people standing watch who are looking out for things in the water, okay? One of the things they're looking out for is man overboard. There are a lot of ways you can fall overboard, okay? When you're out on the catwalks, or what's called the area around the ship, which is a graded ground, you look down, you see water. It's if you have a fear of heights or a fear of falling into water, that would probably be pretty overwhelming for you as the ship steams through the water. You see the rip current or the wave break that it's making as the ship cuts through the sea. And it'll give you vertigo too as you look down at it. And so there are areas where there are no catwalks. So you could be on the flight deck, for example, and you're standing on the side and there is no catwalk there. There might be what's called the scupper, which is like a gutter around a ship, but then there would be no catwalk. So if you fell over at that point, you would fall right off. Some examples of that are the elevators and some of the areas around the guns. So and on the edges of where the cats are, the catapults. So the fear of falling over exists. It's definitely something to be concerned about. Now, another thing about falling overboard is darkness. So let me tell you a little story. I've been out on the flight deck when I was a junior sailor, out on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier when they turn out the lights and it goes black. It goes pitch black. And you don't have a light. And if you do have a light, it's supposed to be a red or blue light. So there's not a lot of emission from that. So you're not going to see very far. I've been out on the flight deck with no light, and you're not, I'm talking before cell phones, okay? So I didn't have like a cell phone flashlight. And I'm also talking, and also you shouldn't have your cell phone out there anyway, because that's FOD, or, foreign object damage threat. So anywhere near airplanes, you're not supposed to have anything in your pockets. So you shouldn't, in theory, have your cell phone. You go out there, they turn the lights off, and I'm not joking when I say I was scared. I was as scared that first time out in the flight deck of an aircraft carrier in the pitch black when they turn out all the lights and go into deceptive lighting than as scared as I've ever been in Iraq and Afghanistan doing helo operations, anything else that I ever did in the Navy. And I remember just sitting on the ground, grabbing a pad eye, because the ship's rocking, listing, right? And it's going. And just laying on the ground, holding on to something, trying to figure out where I was. And I didn't know if I took a step, I didn't know where my foot was going to go. That's how dark we're talking about here, okay? I could take a step forward and I wouldn't know where I was going to end up, okay? I would have for sure easily walked off the flight deck. Now add 20, 30, 40 knot winds, okay, on the flight deck. I don't know if this guy fell off the flight deck, but I'm just saying the ability to fall off of a ship is extremely real, okay? The threat is real. So one of the ship's lookouts, which is generally like a bosun's mate, a seaman out there with a pair of binoculars looking out for somebody, calls in somebody else. So it doesn't even say if he had his flotation vest on. The Theodore Roosevelt is in the Eastern Pacific. We just reported on them, didn't we? The Roosevelt's back at sea. So, excuse me. So there's these watches who are looking out specifically for people falling overboard, for anything in the water unusual, ships maybe looking for help. So they report somebody overboard. At this point, they would have done a call over the ship's 1MC, or the ship's announcement system, saying, man overboard, man overboard. And at that point, everyone in the ship, no matter what you're doing, you secure what you're doing and you do an accountability check. They muster everybody on the ship. Every single person gets accounted for, and they report that to the commanding officer. They do this in drills. Every time you go underway, they do this, and they do it in drills randomly. And usually, if you're sleeping, if you're a night watch person, you're sleeping during the day, you're screwed because you have to get up for man overboard. So they go down there and they do an accountability of everybody, and there's somebody missing. So an aircraft carrier full of thousands of people, they do an accountability. That takes maybe up to 15 minutes. 15 minutes would be a slow one. I've seen them go 20, 30 minutes, but 15 minutes would be a slow one. So normally on a man overboard drill, you would do an accountability. If somebody's not accounted for, they'll start searching for them. Okay, so they'll start searching for them. If they don't find that person, they'll declare a man overboard. They'll start looking in the water. But they had actually seen somebody in the water. So one of the watchers reported seeing somebody in the water. So they knew if they saw somebody in the water and they're coming up missing one person, there's probably a sailor from the ship in the water, which at this point, that is a scary, scary realization. So they would launch helos right away. And if they were doing flight ops, there would already have been helos in the air, because an aircraft carrier does not do flight ops without a helo in the air. So they would start looking. Then they would call the Coast Guard. Then they would call other ships in the battle group to help conduct a search with all the other helos, because other ships will have helos on them too. And they'll go out and they'll look over. They'll have airplanes up looking over. The person, if they had their flotation vest on, could have had a whistle. They could have had a strobe light, and they could have had colored dye for the water. So the Theodore Roosevelt got underway early last week and is currently in the Eastern Pacific. Investigators are looking into how the sailor went overboard. The Third Fleet News release says, so they don't say how he went overboard. The Carrier Strike Group 9 team sends our thoughts and prayers to the family and loved ones of our missing shipmate, said Rear Admiral Doug Verissimo, commander of Carrier Strike Group 9, in a statement. I offer my thanks to all the sailors and Coast Guardsmen who were involved in the search. And that's the end of that article. So let me look up really quick what the name of the sailor was. I'm typing. All I can say while I'm typing is that I'm typing. And then, so let's see, did they say who this is? I'll keep looking for it. So they did declare him dead. And the thing with that is, there's just so much you can do. If you're in the water, if a sailor is in the water from a ship, and the ship loses sight of that person, the likelihood of them being rescued drops to almost zero. What the ship would do is conduct dead reckoning, which is a process of assessing the direction and speed the ship was moving, as well as the weather conditions, and try to figure out which direction this sailor would have drifted, and for how long. So at what speed he would have drifted, and for how long he would have drifted. And then they'll conduct probably a box pattern search. as they go, going left, right in a box pattern, or a circular concentric circles pattern. There's different ways to do it. I'm not actually that familiar with exactly how they would conduct a man overboard rescue search from a helo. I can probably get a air crewman on here to talk about it. So they searched and searched and searched, but they have to consider a few things. One is temperature of the water. So if the water's 55, 60 degrees, you can only last so long in there before you're going to succumb to hypothermia. Drowning. So what are the sea conditions? He's getting taught. I mean, this is horrible. This is just, as I talk through it, I just can feel what a sailor would be going through as they are surviving at sea, hopelessly. And it's horrible. So I'm just on a tantrum now, but would have been rocked around, would have been thrashed around by the waves, potentially drowning, completely disoriented. Could have been sick. He could have been sick, made sick by the ocean. What are the sea life threats? Are there sharks in the water? Is it likely that he would be attacked by sea life at this point after being in the water for a couple days? And then also likelihood of finding that person. As every minute that passes, the odds of being found drop and drop and drop and drop. So ultimately, you face the reality as the skipper of having to call off the search because you have to continue your operations. So the aircraft carrier still has a mission. Okay, it's just like in the Army or Marines. If a Marine or a soldier is killed on the battlefield, that unit's deployment isn't over. Okay, they have to keep going and doing their job. And the Navy is the same way, and the Air Force is the same way. So they had to make a choice at some point to end the search and say, we are going to steam now to where we're going and continue our flight operations in support of whoever, because they still have a mission. It is, oh man, it just came to me, float coat. If he was wearing his float coat, that's what they call it. So float coat has a technical term, like an MCU 32 or something, but they call it a float coat, and it has your whistle, your light, your tie-dye, or not tie-dye, but dye that you would put in the water, your manual inflation, so you would blow into the tube to inflate it, and it's supposed to automatically inflate once it hits salt water. So you should be wearing that if you're out on the weather decks, or weather decks meaning anywhere that's exposed that could get rained on is called a weather deck. If you're out on the weather deck, you're supposed to have a float coat on. Sometimes you wouldn't if you were FOD walk down or something like that. But if you were air department or whatever and you were out there, you would definitely have a float coat on. So I've got the article from the Navy Times here. The Navy Times reports that this sailor was 20-year-old Ethan Goolsby, who was an aviation ordnanceman. He had only been in the Navy for a short time. There's a picture of him here with his father at graduating boot camp. Oh, this is horrible, man. There's a picture. His father looks like he's in tears, just probably proud. The guy's in his dress blues. I'm going to pull the picture up here for the YouTube on YouTube. But if you're listening on podcast, it just sucks. Like, it's sad. I feel like, having been in the Navy, this is something that I do know about a little bit, and I can comment on, and I can kind of empathize with more than other things that I report on the show sometimes. I will say, I will say, in my experience, we've been lucky because the people that we've had go overboard. When I was on the Ronald Reagan, we had somebody fall overboard. They were recovered, and we had a jet go overboard, and the pilot ejected, and he was in the water, and he was recovered. They were right next to the ship. Luckily, the ship was so close, they were able to identify them and keep eyes on them for long enough to recover them. But I know it's probably seems to you guys like, if you haven't been in the Navy, if you haven't been on a ship, like, how does this happen? How could they lose sight of them? Like, why didn't they just go pick them up? Why didn't they just sail up next to them and pick them up? But you're talking about an aircraft carrier here, a massive, gigantic ship that cannot just maneuver quickly enough or get close enough without killing the guy itself. So what they would definitely do is deploy either a helicopter or a rescue boat. Now, I don't know if they deployed a rescue boat. It doesn't say that, but on the ship, there are personnel recovery teams. So a boat could have been launched, a small boat could have been launched with people who are trained to do that exact mission that are on an aircraft carrier, and they could have gone and gotten him if he was close enough. If he was close enough and if they saw him and they knew how to get him. There are trained swimmers on a ship who are qualified for that type of thing. That's exactly their job. They're rescue swimmers. They can jump in to the water and rescue somebody who's drowning. But I don't know. There's not enough information out about that, and there probably will never be unless somebody on the Roosevelt decides to come on the show and tell me what happened. The Navy Times reports 3 helicopters and a boat were launched in response, but they did not find them. The Navy Times, of course, is not a government paper. It's a private paper, so they report what they have, news that they've investigated. So they do report that 3 helicopters and a boat were launched, but they weren't able to recover them. I don't know if you guys have ever been looking for somebody or just looking out into the water. You can be looking at somebody. One wave comes, and that person's gone from your view. And once you lose sight of them, it's really hard to track them back down. And somebody in the ocean, and you're looking with binoculars and you're trying to find them, it's going to be really, really difficult. So they weren't able to find him. They didn't find him, and he's been declared dead. So that is just a tragic story. I feel, I'm sorry to the family. It's unfortunate. It does happen in the Navy. It does happen. It is the Navy is not safe and sound. When you're out there on the ship, you're not just safe and sound. There's a lot of threats out there. You're probably not going to get shot on an aircraft carrier, but there are a lot of threats. You could get man overboard. You'd be killed in a maintenance accident, in an aviation accident. It's just it's not a free pass out there. We had those ship crashes a few years ago. So just want to send some love out there to the Navy who's getting after it, doing their job. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button up in the corner here and check out this next video. If you want, in the description down below, there's links where you can get ScuttleButt Show merch and find out how you can support the channel. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you guys very soon.